Go ahead and start.
Anybody?
No. Guess that worked out.
All right, let's call this meeting, this Board of Directors workshop to order, Monday, May 7th. It's 9:32 a.m. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Jack. Second?
Second.
Thank you,
David,
Bob.
before you do, can I ask that you add the motion that I put in front of you this morning regarding permits for the athletic field complex?
Thank you. We'll go ahead and put the permits, and that will be covered under the athletic recreation fields item, under updates, item C. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, good. Thank you, Steve. Any other adjustments? Okay. All in favor, adopting the agenda? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so our first item today is discussion about Island Village. We've allocated for our board workshop a total of 2 hours, and again, this is part of our routine of Mondays, first and third Mondays of the month. So this is our first Monday of the month. We're patching.
You're on with us now. The board meeting's begun.
So our agenda today, our first topic for 1 hour is Island Village. And just by way of context, as we're looking at Island Village and this discussion, this is what we envision as the first of many discussions. So we will not resolve everything today, but there was with several of you, and we'll have you introduce yourselves momentarily, a month or so ago, a town hall. These multiple rooms were filled, lots of information. This board was newly constituted, I think, at that point. 3 of us on the board met with Bennett. We had a great discussion from our perspective. We had a great discussion and said, now we want to have the full board involved. We also, and we'll have Jeffrey introduce himself, we wanted Jeffrey involved. And then we know that there'll be other community involvement, and that's part of our discussion today. So why don't we just do a quick introduction? Bennett, would you like to start? I know it's not at the end, but if you could just go ahead.
Thank you very much for having us here. My name is Bennett Ruedis. I'm with Manami Homes.
Good.
I'm the project manager for Island Village for Manami Homes.
Good.
Good morning, I'm Katie Suggs. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Manami Homes.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. Keith Trace, General Manager with Manami Homes.
I'm sorry, I have trouble hearing, and so I'm going to ask the 2 of you to speak up and slow down and say your names one more time. For the old guy.
Me too? Or
No, I know.
oh,
Katie Suggs, Vice President of Marketing, Manami.
Okay.
Correct.
And Keith Trace.
Keith, okay, thanks.
And familiar faces from the town hall. Right.
yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Correct.
Vaughn, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure.
So that they know who you are?
Vaughn Roberts.
Great, thank you.
I'm Jackson Mummy.
Kevin Kirby.
David Anderson, and we need someone on the phone. Brian, can you introduce yourself?
Brian's not here.
Maybe he's not here. Jack?
Jack McLaughlin.
Steve Waring.
And Susan Kearns, I'm the community manager.
I'm Jeffrey Mound, town architect since 1999, and worked on the original master plan at Robert Inkster Architects before that as well.
So we prepared a rough outline of discussion, and we thought a couple places to start. And if you will, the reason for the outline is so we don't get so drilled down on one topic and we spend our limited time together on one topic. So we hope we can do a broad brush on covering a variety of things, decide on what some next steps might be, and then you may have some things that, agenda items that you'd like to have with us, from us, with the community. As you know, we are the elected body for the Homeowners Association for Celebration, and we don't have all the answers, but we have the interests of our homeowners at heart, I think is our bottom line, the interest of our community. So the first 2 items, just as a general process, and I use the terms, I created this from your presentation, if I heard it right, the general process of commitment, teamwork, and community. That's what we heard, that's what I heard in the town hall meeting a month or so ago, and how you envision that unfolding. And then I think a good starting point is an overview of the overall approval process to acquaint us and those who are in the audience here and then viewing now or later. What's the overall approval processes? TCC, county, CDD, whomever else. So just,
Yes, sir.
Bennett,
Yes,
Katie,
can,
Keith, and,
just for Keith and Katie's edification here also, do we have one board member not present? Just so
away.
that,
Debbie is one,
Debbie's away.
yeah, Debbie is not present. Is that?
yes.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for
Okay,
clarifying.
So, and Brian on the phone is also a board member then as well?
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so again, thank you for having us here. Hopefully, you guys are picking up my mic here. Is this okay? So, as it relates to the general process and the overall approval processes, I think we as a group can talk about that. We have a contract with the celebration company to, and we've already closed on the first part of the property here. And our contract with them is that we are to run all approvals, run everything by them prior to going out to public approvals, i.e. Sending it out to Osceola County, CDDs, CROA involvement and all that. So anything that we share with everybody has already been seen by the celebration company, or anything that we haven't shown yet to the general public has yet to go past celebration company for their first look or for their comments or whatever. Keith, did you want to add anything more to that?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Can I just ask?
Yes, sir.
Is that a contractual provision? That the TCC has to review and approve everything before you
Yes,
do it?
TCC has full review and approval rights over all marketing materials, all architectural approvals, essentially anything we do, site plan approval.
And is that document available?
Yeah, it's a private agreement between us.
And who's your contact at TCC?
Contact, I guess would be Henry Thrash would be the best contact.
I have one other question. You indicated that you have closed on the first part. What other parts are we talking about, and how extensive is this first part?
All of Island Village is three pieces on the
Okay.
closing process. So they wanted it to match up with fiscal calendars and.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So the first
We're
of
committed.
three.
Yeah, we're committed to all of Island Village. It's just a matter of we only own the first third of Island Village.
Okay.
How big is the first phase?
It's all of F1. I don't know how many acres.
20 units or?
It's the commercial center of it, which is the 30,000 square feet of non-residential, the 300 apartments, roughly 300 single family, and the elementary school. And then the rest of the entitlements are spread over F2, 3, and 4
Okay, it's 300 apartments or condos?
apartments.
You're on now.
300 single family and 300 apartments. Okay. Ballpark,
General.
okay?
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately. And the
Also,
school,
also approximately about 100 and some odd acres for the actual F1 parcel, and another 50 or so acres for the road leading up to Island Village.
the road and the bridge.
Yes, from the high school all the way to the front door, I guess, of F1.
When it comes to your the commercial space and then your apartment, do you have a vendor in mind that will be overseeing those? Are you overseeing them? What's going to happen when you guys are out? Who's going to be looking over those?
So all of those, review and approval have to go through TCC and the town architect and all of that process. And then we're currently negotiating a contract with a multifamily developer that has done work, in various master plan communities all over the United States. They're not based in Florida, but they have Florida representation, and they do kind of high-end projects all over the United States.
And that's in reference to the apartments.
The multifamily site, yes.
How about the commercial space?
The commercial site, we don't have any tenants or any real, backing behind the plan yet. We're still formulating all that, along with the site plan for the entire first phase.
So there's no program for the commercial at this point?
Not yet. We're loosely looking through financials, but then also need studies on what's actually built. We want to make sure that something's successful. Anything that we build.
Is the apartment, sorry, let me follow up on your question. Is the apartment piece, 300 units, a separate piece from the neighborhood? Is it an identified, single, isolated parcel?
It will be once it gets into platting, but we don't want it to feel like it's something different as you drive down the streetscape.
So it does not have mixed use, it's not commercial space on the ground floor?
We're still working through that. We're trying to make something feel like when we did the town hall presentation of like a little mini downtown. We're trying to make something feel just like Celebration Ave, those spaces that were multifamily, and then they've converted into doctor's office, real estate office, all those kinds of uses.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Is that identified, grades been identified, been told to you what's going in that yet?
The school agreement is a matter of public record. That was the same one that was negotiated 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, right.
And then I believe that's PK through 5.
Okay, great.
And do you have a timeline for the completion of the first phase?
Of our overall development,
First phase.
as soon as humanly possible.
Oh, okay.
But the school site, we have to, they're delivering seats essentially per that agreement, the 2020-2021 school year. So is that 2 years from now?
Yes.
So we're getting into 18-19, yeah.
Okay.
2021 school year.
Yeah, the
2020,
2020-2021, since it's,
Oh, 2021.
yeah, yeah.
For, what, 2020, fall 2020, 2020.
Fall 2020.
So not next fall, but the fall after that.
Academic year 2020-21.
2 years from now.
Yes,
2 years
For
from
opening the
August.
school.
that's the plan.
Wow. Okay. Anything else under approval or general processes? before we look at
Yes, I
some of
wanted
these?
to throw out, a couple ideas here.
Good.
First of all, well, not first of all, we're already into it, right? So we also want to, kind of work also with the board and potentially here with the CCMC, make sure we're documenting all this, so as we go through this process now and in the future, hopefully we're generating lists of things that you may be requesting of us so that we could all be literally on the same page and we could address them each individually and all that. So I know over time, meetings, side conversations, whatever, phone calls that we've had, it's coming at us in multiple directions, right? And it's it will get overwhelming if we can't manage it properly. And we're requesting that we try to manage that together as a group on how does Celebration or CROA or whatever singularly send the message to us. We appreciate the forums as well. You mentioned earlier that this is one of many, and I would like to suggest, you could slap me on the back of the head that this is crazy, but because this forum, this CROA workshop may be a little bit more cumbersome, it's not as flexible or nimble as it could be, right? I'm suggesting maybe, not the full board, but maybe a subcommittee of CROA with your, assignees. Come and meet with us more regularly if you'd like. That way we're not bound to a
Monday at 9:30.
Monday 9:30 or every or whatever, or even at the regular hearings, the regular meetings, so that one, you could feel that your issues are being addressed through the committee, and two, you can get through your meetings a little quicker.
I think that ties into the strategic goals that we have set up.
Yeah.
So,
And so that's
I think
something
we're
we
already ahead of you on that.
Yeah, that does.
That does.
I wonder who's in charge of those.
You might be looking at us.
And what it might be is a blend of different forums, and not to be confusing, but some things that are the full board.
Sure.
And available to the entire community. Some town hall discussions with, just like we had before with hundreds of people.
Yes.
Some informal with some liaisons from the board. So
Yes.
again, I think that's something we should talk about as a board. But good, yeah, please, Jeffrey. Yeah, please.
I so appreciate you guys coming here and working with CROA board and all of us who've been around here for so long. It's actually an opportunity, I think, for you to not only engage in the community and build trust over time, but also to take advantage of the history and knowledge that is buried within our organization here. I guess my question is, I know you're going through the process of design and review. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of steps and a lot of checking and going back and forth. That costs money and time. And I know that's a challenge for any builder, particularly a merchant builder who's building and watching their bottom line, and velocity and volume is critical, as well as this, your recognition that this is a legacy project that brings you status and quality to your company, not only locally but nationally, I think, because of the quality of our community. I guess my question is, can you work with us either in the subcommittees or with the board or both in a prudent way so that you can incorporate discussions, conversations, adjustments into your design, into your approach, into the performance, into whatever it is. We're here to support you, but also we want to make sure our community is consistent and has this continued legacy of quality throughout. And I think there's an opportunity for us to work together on that. But I just want to know if it's a lot of times when we get information from developers, it's too late. It's like, well, we're there. That's what you get, and it's more of an information process than it is interactive kind of working together process. I'm just wondering how you feel about that. Are you in the status that you're here to work together to evolve and make this a project that we can be proud of?
So I kind of want to start off with a story when you talk about timeline and everything. We went through, spent 6 months putting together a site plan for the first phase, F1. We send it to the engineers, we get it graded out, the entry area, there was a bunch of topo. We thought we could change the topography over the gas lines a little more than we did. We get it graded out. You look at it, it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right. We threw it away and we essentially started over on Thursday and Friday last week of a new site plan. So it's just, we want to make sure that it feels good, it looks right, it's keeping, but we just kind of threw it away and started over. So we're committed to making it something that is lasting, enduring, and in keeping with the community.
Yeah, part of that, right, is I think, I'm not sure how other developers have operated before. Hopefully today, and even with the town halls, and hopefully also with the future meetings, either by subcommittee or workshops, town halls, hopefully we're showing you and the residents of Celebration our commitment to the community and all that. As it relates to being involved in the design process and all that, we have to really think about that ourselves. To be honest with you, how do we integrate opinions, that are coming from, the residents or the board, and putting together a design before we even take it to Celebration Company, and how does that work? I hear that you're may be a little frustrated with the fact that we may be coming to you with show and tell as opposed to collaboration, but I think there's a middle ground in there that we could work out. Probably not during this meeting, but yes, I think we could. I mean, is that fair to say?
That's fair.
I have one thing to touch on with that. I actually was speaking to Christy, I believe it was, who was over the focus group. And I disclosed my position that I was on the CROA board. I declined any gift card or anything. I was there for information. And one thing to me that was kind of frustrating, going off of what you're saying now, is around that table were people not only from Celebration, but from Winter Park, Winter Springs, up to Ocala and so on. And those individuals had their eyes open to things that will be happening within our community. And I would like to see that same slideshow, those same plans, those same offerings, once they're obviously public now. In some capacity, they are.
Right.
And I would like to see how we could work on bringing those same kind of things out to our residents.
Well, it's, sometimes we test ideas in focus groups that we don't plan to implement, but to get a reaction to see if, do you like this or this? Maybe neither of them actually happen, but to get a reaction and to get some dialogue through it. So it's sometimes showing some of that information to everyone will send them all down the wrong path as well.
That's fair, that's fair. The one thing I would definitely encourage, though, is this community will be involved and they will tell you. They will be your focus group without giving out a gift card.
Yeah.
So if you really want information from people that could provide you firsthand, I'm sure you could.
Well, and we're trying to formulate a lot more online focus groups as well, to where it's, everyone can, we can only fit 10 people in a room. Once you get more than that, it's, it just gets out of hand. So we're putting together some online focus groups too.
Awesome.
Testing, either plan or layout, different ideas we have, and then product design once we get into that.
Awesome.
Dave,
Yes.
can I add to
please.
that also?
Sure.
Jeffrey stated earlier, this is a complicated process. There's a lot for them to go through, and I think it's important for the residents to understand that there is a process that they do have to go through TCC that's really a non-negotiable process. They have to do it.
Right.
So the key here is how is the CROA board and the opportunity for the town halls, how do we fit into that process? Because we want a seat at the table, we want our voices heard. How do we fit in that process so that it's efficient, effective, and it gets you the results that you're looking for? Because the last thing we want is to be counterproductive to the process and cause more problems in the process. So I think that the message should be loud and clear. We want a voice, we want to be there, we want to be able to offer opinions on how things are going, but at the same time, we have to do it within the process that's established to make sure that it runs correctly.
Yeah.
Of course. I just want to prevent, a Spring Lake where we had issues 3 years later, or a town center where we had issues 20 years later.
Right.
Because it will be our issue and we will be involved. So.
And this is a good start to that.
Yeah, this is a great start.
Right.
Jack.
I appreciate that it's a pain in the butt to come to a Monday morning meeting and to be in public and to be videoed and streamed.
From the back of the head.
That's
too.
our obligation, it's not yours, so we get that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, to Steve's point, since much of this is required and your approvals will have to come from TCC, one of the ways that we do get a seat at the table is by being here in this forum. So while I'm perfectly happy to have some appointed group, which I think has to include Jeffrey, meeting with you and reporting back, I think that there is an incumbent need on you to come back to us on a very regular basis in a public forum, in an open setting, and report on what you're saying, report on what you're doing. If you're unwilling to do that, okay. But this is one of the few ways that we actually have of participating in a way that keeps everybody's feet to the fire. And you may not want to have your feet to the fire. TCC may not want to have their feet to the fire, but I assure you that that is part of the process. And while it's messy and ugly and it takes time and it's annoying, it's part of the process.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brian Kinsel. I've got good reception now, so I'm here.
You can turn the volume up.
One of the things I'd like to add here is one of the reasons you're hearing this approach from us is as CROA, people just assume even the things that aren't our responsibility are our responsibility. And it's important because of the town center, and I think it's important because of Spring Lake, that we have learned things, and those are going to be the things that we get asked by our neighbors and friends all the time, which is why you'll really hear us focus on a couple of these questions and communicating. At some point here, I'd like to hear you talk about your town center that you talked about earlier and how you're going to make sure that it doesn't get sold, or if it does get sold, that reserves are going to be done and stuff like that, because that is going to be a quick question that we get from everybody.
Yeah, right. That's great. Yeah, and just reflecting back, thank you, Brian. Reflecting back on Jeffrey's point and moving us forward, the history and knowledge buried in this community, the lessons learned from Spring Lake, from Town Center, from the entire community, and then that this is a legacy project. And again, we appreciate your being here, we appreciate the dialogue, and But at the same time, going back to Steve's point, we don't want to hold things up. We want to be engaged, and I think, again, with Jackson, we think more is better without causing roadblocks, but constant dialogue, small, large, so forth.
Is your concern a lack of resource, or, okay?
I think it's the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And we've learned lessons through downtown, through Lexington and some of the things that we're going through right now. And those are all things that, as David talks about history, can be shared with you to avoid those landmines.
Yeah, avoid them.
We learned issues with Spring Lake, and that caused problems and heartaches. And when it's handed over to CROA and we can manage it at a high level, the word of mouth and the sales, it all goes back to the credibility that we started talking about. It looks good for everybody involved. It looks good for Mattamy, for CROA, for the residents that are living there. I think that there's a lot of things that we can help you through.
Let me also add that the lessons learned here are not just the problems that we've overcome or the problems we've identified in a couple of places. Some of the lessons we've learned are groundbreaking, new urbanist, mixed-use, complex, detailed things that we've built into each neighborhood. And those things are pretty consistent from neighborhood to neighborhood in Celebration. The mixture of product type, the mixture of housing type, the complexity of that arrangement within each little neighborhood. You mentioned 300 units or 300 single-family houses. So my mind immediately goes to what's the makeup of that? Is that townhome, single-family, small, medium, large, estate home, or is it 3 product types? Are the product types in terms of lot size and setbacks similar to our neighborhood? We've learned so many lessons on how to do that right that I immediately think in my mind, okay, hopefully they've got somebody who is familiar with the new urbanism principles all the way down to the engineering that goes into the curb detail. Those things should not just be adopted from what the county standard is, because the county standard is much different than what Celebration has instilled in our designs. And I'm hoping that you have that really high quality oversight from really excellent architects and excellent engineers. The Celebration Company has hired hundreds of fantastic, very skilled designers over the years, and they were in charge of hiring those people. And they spent a lot of money and time. And the first phase of this community took about 6 years to design. It started in 1987 and they didn't break ground until 92. The first building was finished in 94 and the first resident moved in 96. That's a long period of development and design throughout this process that I think you can adopt some of the similar things that we've already done in this community. And I'm dying to see what the makeup and the configuration is on the land, because that's so critical to the success of this design in this community.
So, just a point of observation, we're about halfway, we spent about a half hour and we have another half hour. Is there another topic, and thank you for that, is there another topic that we want to address? Vaughn, you look like you're ready to jump.
I'm not going to jump anywhere.
Okay.
I'm too old to jump. But I think we need a way to address the rumors that surface from the community. They hear about this going on, or they hear about this. We have different forums going on, with residents, and you see things pop up that we don't have an answer to, but we would need a way to probably dispel those right away before they start boiling over. And I was just wondering, is there a way we can do that without waiting for the next meeting? Is there any suggestions from the board and Madam how we can do that?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to one of the comments that I made earlier, was that how do we get that message right? Is it a singular message coming from a managed system or whatever? There are certain things that I'm hearing that we could address today. I mean, you've got it on your agenda here already. But also earlier in conversation, and I see it on your agenda here as well, talking with Steve and others with CCMC here, is that we, Manamy Homes, may be able to have a place where we can post informational type stuff out on the website. Informational only, with a link back to where all the hard sale would be, back to our website and all. But also that might be a place either for us to, post those answers and dispel the rumors. Not necessarily a, forum type place, but a place where if we are, as a group, are hearing those rumors. For
So
example,
can we go directly to one of those?
Yeah, if I could.
Sure.
There is a blog called Growth Spotter.
Yes.
On April 24th, 2018, they wrote, Manamy Homes, the master developer for Celebrations Island Village, will be extending Celebration Boulevard South all the way to County Road 532 as part of that development.
Yes.
Now, you told us in a private meeting that wasn't going to happen.
You also have to remember, taking a quote from you at our meeting not too long ago, I believe 50% what you hear and read on the out on the news waves out there. Okay, so I want to squash that right away. We do not want a back door.
Is there any pressure from outside Manamy Homes to put
We
that
don't
through?
control outside pressure.
Are you receiving any?
Just, no, I wouldn't say major pressure, would you say?
Well, I mean, the fire marshal is always an issue, right? You guys dealt with it. We're looking at some of the same consultants on our end to help fight the same questions, concerns, and comments we're getting from the county as well.
Are there any requirements that you know of that are
So
a
the
source of authority that's calling for
The
it?
PD is an entitlement that showed no connection anywhere off-site south of the site. So PD is there. It's something we're relying on as an entitlement of the property.
Right.
We don't want a back door.
You don't want a back door, we don't want a back door.
So how do we stop a back door?
Can the PD be just overridden by whom, if it's already in place?
PD doesn't require
It's already in place, so as long as you don't need any changes to the PD, then it doesn't get reopened.
Now, we're not necessarily in control of the PD. There are, that is a Celebration PD, not an Island Village PD. Okay, so, anything that may come up for Celebration Company, commercial, whatever, other pieces of the PD that may need a PD change, we don't necessarily control that.
Has the Celebration Company weighed in on this back door?
I think so.
Have they suggested, have they asked, have they inquired, have they requested?
Well, they haven't requested anything of us.
So, as far as you know, they're neutral about a back door.
Yeah, at the very least.
Where does this come from
Yeah.
on Growth Spotter? Where does that come from? And that comment that you mentioned, that's what I brought up.
So
That
we
day.
had a pre-app meeting with the county we knew, and that was currently when you guys were having the issues in downtown with the fire marshal, so we wanted to bring up, we have 1,300 single-family units in an elementary school on a dead-end system, on a cul-de-sac, big cul-de-sac. So we wanted to make sure that we could be protected of being able to construct all of Island Village, in the form and fashion that we want, that is a part of the PD. So we kind of had a pre-app meeting to try to flesh out any issues, and that was one of the big things they brought up.
So Manamy went to the county to go ahead and bring it up.
Yeah,
and
as
explain.
any development you have coming up, you
Right.
usually do a pre-app meeting, try to flesh some things out before you make this whole submittal, and they say, no, you can't do this, this, this.
So the fire marshal has permitting also, as they're looking at the design here. So would it be a fair statement to say that the logic behind the fire marshal wanting that is so that they could have easier access for safety and protection from other units outside of just 72?
Outside of 72.
So 72 is the in-town unit for the fire
okay.
for the fire department.
They always look at their backup unit in case
Right.
they're on another fire, or if a road's blocked, they need to be able to get.
And another one of theirs is right on 532.
Well,
Yeah.
and then they also
So
have
that's-
an understanding and agreement with other counties to whoever's closest, I
mutual
believe,
aid, yeah.
to
And
where they
that's
could, and I think that would be Polk,
Polk County.
right?
Is there any interest in increasing the number of lanes on the road going down from the high school down to Island Village?
We're trying to keep it to a 2-lane road, because once you incorporate a 4-lane road, then that is almost inviting for the back door.
Or vice versa.
Because
So
it's self-limiting.
I'm just
right?
saying that the quantity of, the amount of traffic that's going to be generated there is going to be quite excessive at that time.
We have traffic studies that kind of back up the need for only 2 lanes.
Okay.
To back up only 2 lanes.
Yeah.
Do we know where the source of that article came from? I mean, we know who posted it, but
That's
where do they get their information?
Bloggers aren't required to be fact-checked or resource-checked. They can just write whatever they
No,
want.
of course. It's just
Somebody.
So that was,
interesting
the writer
for it
of
to
that
come
was
out of
at
nowhere.
they attend all the pre-app meetings with the county. And
Did
so
you respond to any of that in public?
the county kind of sprung all that on us as we were there, so we were just kind of fielding their concerns and moved
But
on.
you guys went to the county asking if they're going to require it.
It wasn't specific with that. We just had submitted kind of an overall plan. We were just like this. We're trying to work out the process of, do we submit mass grading plans? Do we submit roadway plans separate than the first phase? We're trying to work through that process with them.
Okay.
And they had an agenda and sprung it.
Opposed to a he said, she said, we're probably best to recognize that this board and Manami neither would like to have this back road. So let's focus on this of what we can work together to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. And you guys do carry a lot of weight with making those statements as well. So, I mean, we can try to use that collectively.
Thank you.
Speaking of roads, not only the access road, but internal roads as well, we're working with Rick Hall, who's a traffic engineer here in Jackson, or in Tallahassee, but he is helping the CCDD, and the county was actually hired by the county with us to work on our team to help coordinate some of the adjustments that we're talking about to Celebration Avenue. So you mentioned you're talking about hiring somebody. Is that who you're thinking of working with?
Yeah, we're in discussions with them right now.
Okay, that's great.
Can I suggest that when your board liaison goes to the next CDD meeting, that you just bring up the fact that you met with Madamy and just let that other entity in town know that CROA board stand is that you're against a backdoor, and then ask them to get an opinion from them also.
Right, because they are also
Well, could I just ask, is there any member of this board that is in favor of a backdoor? So,
I mean, you may ask, but in the.
I think, Brian, can you still hear us?
No, it's not green.
So we're missing 2 board members, but I think it's safe to assume that they would share our view that this is a non-starter, that a backdoor through this area is going to be met with an incredible amount of resistance. I mean, this is not just a we'd like to.
And we appreciate that.
Okay. And I understand
If
there are
we
regulations.
look, we need an ally on that. So we appreciate that opinion. You're not fighting us on it.
Good.
We need to work with you on it.
Good. Together.
Please help us if our efforts are not being heard over there at county.
Aren't they also talking about, in that same suggestion that they need a back door, they also want to widen the road to get the main Celebration Boulevard in order to have more access with fire trucks, et cetera, making you build a wider road than you'd like to get there.
The bridge section,
Yeah.
we've acquiesced, and we're building, I think it's 30 feet of clear width, because if there's a car broken down on the bridge, they need to be able to get by. So that's one of those, we can't really fight it, even if we throw consultants at it and
So 30
logic.
feet, my question, I guess, is 30 feet of asphalt is almost 4 lanes. Is it, to your statement, somebody said maybe we have 2 lanes going, 2 lanes coming out, is it warrant to just go ahead and make it 4 lanes? I don't know, 15-foot wide road is wider than all 4.
Now, let me help out a little bit here. It's 30 for the Boulevard roadway section. It's a little bit larger on the bridge, 32 on the bridge. Our intent is to stripe it as 10-foot or 11-foot lanes, 11-foot lanes at the most. County wants, shoulder to shoulder or face of curb to face of curb 30, but that doesn't mean 2 lanes of road, 4 lanes of road or whatever, 3 lanes.
There's
of road.
also bike.
With an extra 5 feet on it.
We've got extra pavement
There's bicycle and pedestrian areas too.
Well, the question is,
I think that was part of your design.
5 feet, could you put in, and this is a detail that we can come to later on, but that's the standard width for bike lanes.
Right.
It's 5 feet.
I think that was part of your presentation on the bridge, right? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Gary Hutchcliffe, 1471 Resolute Street. Back to how can the board disseminate this information to prevent rumors. I highly recommend the board include your positive and definitive statements that you made today in your monthly article in Celebration News. You can also supplement that with the Friday Flash. But don't just do it once. Do it and remind yourself, remind the community, because people come and go all the time, houses sell, apartments get rented by different people. Do it every 2 to 3 months. Reiterate what you've already decided today over and over again. Make a positive statement. We're on record of saying this. Thank you.
And I think that, again, goes back to your words of a month and a half ago. I'll repeat them again. Commitment, teamwork, and community. That's what we're trying to do. With our remaining 17 minutes on this topic, other key issues, well, have we fully addressed the roadway and backdoor thing for now?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, which is nice
Other
to hear.
things that we want to address. Thank you, Gary. Other things that we want to address, or that you want to address, please.
I'd like to talk about the pattern book for a minute. I know that Bennett, you and Jeffrey got together and you had I saw it. I appreciate you meeting in public at my office over at Starbucks. And I saw that you had the pattern book. I know that that was kind of new to you. And I'd like to get a feeling from you as Mattamy representatives what your view is about the pattern book and your willingness to follow the pattern book and not develop the same kind of community that you've developed elsewhere that was not specifically following our pattern book.
Take a drink.
So Bennett deals a lot on the land development side, land entitlement side. Our group, we have design charrettes with our architects. We have 3 different architects we have developing product for the community, as well as LRK doing all the architecture reviews. So I mean, we have a we'll call it commitment to adherence of the pattern book. I mean, it's a part of our purchase contract with TCC as well. So we are adhering to the guidelines and the principles and all of that of the pattern book. There are some things that need to be updated. So like there's no craftsman style in the pattern book. So we're kind of trying to create a supplement to that with detailing to make sure that all 3 architects are consistent in their view and interpretation of craftsmen. So we're putting some of that together. But I mean, for all the other architectural styles, we're using the pattern book as our guidance. Some of the areas that we need to interpolate are just different lot sizes because they've changed and they morphed over time, and there's varying definitions of a village lot throughout the community. So we're interpolating with a lot of those, but we're still keeping consistent with the pattern book.
Okay, just ask one question about the land that you're building on out there. Is that going to have drainage issues? Is that more of a wetland area that's got to be filled? Because we're talking about Spring Lake, the issues they had with water, standing water after rain because of lot size versus the house size. Is that land out there very wet to the point where that's going to become an issue?
So the things that are wet are wet. I mean, it's the Reedy Creek watershed, but the areas that are dry, and we have a 20-foot fall across the site, which is why we had to redevelop our site plan. So these are islands, and they're upland, and there is topography to it. So they are, dry.
They are wet.
Yeah. We're almost dealing with too much dirt in the way. But yeah, so your comment about drainage, that's more on the micro level of between 2 houses. So we're instead of using 6 feet between houses, we're putting 10 feet between the houses. So that was some of the Spring Lake drainage issue of just some of the houses 2-story right next to each other. Light doesn't get in there, sunlight to dry it out. We're increasing.
You probably already saw that we have impervious percentages based on the style of house that's in Celebration, and you can't go over that amount.
Yeah, that's all the requirements. Yeah, we're adhering to.
I appreciate what you're saying about the pattern book and about your architects. I'd like to hear a commitment that says we acknowledge the pattern book, we are going to follow the pattern book as best we can, and that we're going to continue to operate and function with the town architect prior to the release and the design of these architectural plans. In other words, what I don't want to see happen is that we have these conversations and then at some point in the future, you announce your grand opening of new home designs and we see them and they don't represent the pattern book. And you go, well, LRK said it was okay. That's happened before. You didn't do it, but it's happened. And so I want to know, and I want a commitment, and I think most of us on this board would like that same commitment, that this is going to be a celebration community. You have built other communities successfully that don't look anything like Celebration. I don't want your community in XYZ. I want your Celebration community.
And that's why we're developing all new home designs, completely different. We're not reusing anything from any other community, and we are designing it to the pattern book. I mean, our review and approval method and process is already set, and we're going to take as much input and feedback as we can, including from CROA's architect. We have a different approval town architect, as we call them. So, I mean, we're going to have to deal with multiple opinions, and they might not always see eye to eye on the, minute detail of the hinge, on this style versus that.
It's a celebration.
Yeah, so it's, there's never going to be 100% consensus, and if anyone gets 100% consensus on anything, then, that's a miracle. But, I mean, we're working towards making sure that we are in adherence with the pattern book.
I'd also like to... Celebration is not a perfect place, and there have been mistakes throughout the history, mistakes on details, like you're mentioning. And we don't want to default to the lowest common denominator of those mistakes and then say, well, it's done over there, it's done over there. Yeah. I think you're saying that the intent is to follow the pattern book and not make those mistakes over time. I think that's really important to the success of the project. When you build the first street and it looks great and it feels great, right down to the detail, it'll start selling itself. You don't have to use a sales brochure to sell the house like most communities. Here's the 4 models you pick from, and oh, look, isn't it pretty on the picture here? The street will sell the product, and the first step out of the gate has to be really good, and following all the way through the process, we need to know what your colors are on the houses. So when we get to design review process of the homeowners association, when somebody wants to change something or update something, we need to know what those colors are. Same thing with the window type, the terraces materials, the impervious surface area. We need to know what those are. There's a lot of information that needs to get passed down to the CROA, Architecture Review Committee, so that we can dovetail right in behind your work and follow up and support the community. Because you'll be building homes at the same time we'll probably be managing homes. So we want that process to be really smooth and have a lot of good communication. The other thing on the pattern book is there's a whole first half of the pattern book, which is the community patterns, which shows the layout of the lot types and the mixture. But it also shows the open space, the passive parks that are really almost more important than the wetland and the drainage. Those passive parks are what makes Celebration so unique. And if you drive in Celebration Village, there's a huge amount of passive park per lot, per house capita, if you will, in Celebration Village. When you get to North Village, there's a grand boulevard. You get to South Village, there's a huge central park, but there's also other small parks that sort of activate and make the place really fantastic. I hope you're committed to that kind of open space as well for people to enjoy and to make it part of Celebration. Is that part of your program?
Yeah, well, and so for each village is probably going to kind of morph differently than the first island. Yeah, well, and the first island is going to, there is going to be created with that town center. A lot of the other ones will have to rely on the passive parks and other active recreation, but our center is going to be that main and main kind of mini town center. So that's where we're focusing a lot of effort and detail on now, and then a lot of the other spaces will kind of play out from there.
You may consider not using the word town center.
Yeah, I know. We need to come up with a different. A village core is what we're.
Village center
Yeah.
or a village community
Yeah.
space, because unless you build a town center, and I'd hate for you to build a town center that takes anything away from our current town center, because the retail and the restaurants have to achieve a certain amount of stuff, so it might be a consideration.
Can I add also, CROA has some experience working with TCC when you purchase the Civic Corridor property. You do have some covenants and restrictions in there, and there's 3 layers of permitting that you have to go through TCC, even to build a dog park. I mean, you had to go through your preliminary, your conceptual, and then your final approval, all the way down to the plants that are going to be there, the type of grass, what type of fencing. You're going to have a little bit more experience as you go through building an actual building, which would be more similar to a single-family home on the athletic field complex. So we go through the process, CROA goes through the process with TCC of approval before we can begin any type of construction, and it's in line with the pattern book.
And is that through the CJC?
No, it's a purchase agreement from TCC. CJC is just the umbrella committee that oversees the cost sharing of CROA and Canoa.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, Steve, then, why we don't have a TCC representative here at these meetings. If TCC is the invisible hand in the room that controls everything, and you won't show us the agreement, which I think you could redact and show us plenty of things in that agreement if you were.
And most of it are those 3 levels of review, along with the non-residential, residential, rec deck, all the other covenants that we have to adhere to. I mean, that's 90% of it.
Well, I'd like to see the 90%. Humor me. But my point is that I think the TCC ought to be here and ought to be talking with us. That may not have been the way it was always done, but I don't think it's the way I think it's a way we can do it. And I think it makes sense to get to Jeffrey's point that there's a lot at stake here. This is not just another community. It's not just another development. This is the preeminent new urbanism community in the United States. That's why you wanted to do this project, wasn't it? And so let's do it the right way. Let's get the parties to the table and let's have the conversations. And let's stop doing things in the back room. I just really don't like that idea that there's all of this stuff happening and then we can all point like this and say, oh, it was those guys. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, Jeffrey is 100% right. You will have people lined up wanting to buy your property if you do it the right way. No question, I was there. I stood in line. But if you do it the wrong way, it will be an unmitigated disaster for the community and for you. And I just don't know why we wouldn't want to have everybody at the table.
Well, just to go on record, CCC didn't decline to come. Nobody invited them. So as we have future meetings, we certainly can ask them to be part of those.
I would ask the president to make that invitation.
That'd be fine.
I have just one question. Do you have a liaison with CDD now?
Which CDD?
CCDD, our Community Development District, Celebration Community Development District.
I mean, Gary, I guess. Like a liaison.
Gary Moyer?
Yeah.
Gary Moyer's your, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Okay.
talked with him about
Okay.
either issues that have come up or.
Right. Gary and his staff and all. Also, for the record, I had invited Celebration Company representatives, but I neglected to do it earlier. So it was a last minute thing. So that was my fault. My intent was to continue to keep them in the loop as far as any activity or actions that Manami has with CROA or anybody else.
Is that Henry that you reach out to?
I reach out to the interim Jim Parker, who is Marty.
Marty.
My understanding is his backup, or not his backup, the new Jim is starting today, and it's part of the reason why they could not make it to this meeting. The other reason is that I let them know Friday. So,
David, you have.
You stated you'd like it to happen.
Right.
That's nice.
we invite them, whether they come or not. That's
Is that an obligation though? Are you required to inform them when you meet with CROA?
It's nice to keep
No,
our
I just want to make
contractee
sure it's
in
not.
the contractor in the know. So, what are we contracting?
So we have 5 minutes left on this topic. Steve?
Did you want to recognize Mr. Jackson first? Because I think it's probably on the same topic. I'll give you the respect that's earned, Mr. Jackson.
Hi, Mike Jackson. Good morning. I think the suggestion of having TCC here is a good one, and I think it would be appropriate to have them involved. But I think you should consider swimming upstream a little farther and getting to those meetings where Mattamy is meeting with TCC. And I think we should have a representative at those meetings. Now, the first thing you'll say is, that's impossible, it'll never happen, and all those things, okay? But my suggestion is consider it. And with this guy, with his background and competency, he could bring a lot to those meetings. So if TCC and Mattamy and everybody else wants to build the absolute best product, then why don't we get the best people in a room to be talking about this? If you're going to design this with a clean sheet of paper, you get those parties together and you've had them involved in the process. But right now, we've got all this baggage and control and issues and agreements, and it's not probably designed to get the best possible product. So I think if everybody steps back, tries to swim upstream a little bit, and consider getting Jeffrey involved. If I were you, I'd have him on a retainer.
Yep.
He should be on your team. Anyway, I'd swim upstream a little farther with this, I think.
Thank you.
So one more item I think we need to address, and Ben and I have talked a little bit about this, but there was some conversation about governance and it being similar to Artisan Park with the exclusive common use and having a committee down there. So I'd like to kind of air that out here now in the last couple of minutes. Was that your intention, or was that just something that, again, believe 50% what you're hearing out there?
It is our intention to have all of our open spaces and common spaces open to everyone, every CROA member. So they're not there. There will be no Artisan Park.
So then that would still fall under the direction of the CROA board and not a specific Island Village committee there. It would be part of the overall CROA footprint.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a private thing.
Right,
Right.
So when we hear that, we can share that it was stated publicly that is not happening.
Thank you.
Anything else for the board? Any other issues?
I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I know this isn't the most comfortable and fun thing to do, but
This is fine. Yeah, why
It's a conversation.
Okay, good. I'm glad
do we look like Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah, a little bit. But I just will say that this is a chance to do something right. Mike's comment was absolutely right. This is the chance to do it the right way. This guy is brilliant. You need to get him involved. You need to listen and be involved in this process, even though it's not necessarily what you've done before. If you do that, you've got allies here. If you don't do that, you have enemies. That's simple.
You know, it's really enemies out of lack of understanding.
Yes.
Not really
Yes.
enemies
Absolutely.
of intent. Because
Absolutely.
our intent is really for you to succeed.
Yeah.
Really,
If you succeed, we
because
succeed.
we benefit from that.
Yeah, yeah.
Eileen, essential? Because we're out of time.
Quick comment, just to sort of think about it. Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic. I know the issue when we were discussing the school was that there was a 10-acre parcel that was supposed to be used for recreational purposes, and that's now gone because it's going to the school. It follows up with what everybody else is saying, that one of the problems in town is recreational facilities. And I don't know whether you've had, I just think it needs to be said, along with the passive parks and everything else. The one thing you may have missed in Central Celebration is the playing, I don't know if you have room for playing fields, but there's always discussion about the smaller recreational facilities and the swimming pools, and I think all those things really need to be part of the plan and considered earlier rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
If I may quickly respond to that, I think that's a great suggestion. In fact, what we should probably be doing is pulling out our master plan, recreation master plan, and working together with you to make sure that everything is balanced. You know, we don't need 15 football fields.
They have it. They have that in the recreation program plan.
Oh, good. Okay. 15 football fields?
No. They have those two plans.
Oh, they have the original master plan.
One of the things that happened is that as Celebration moved west, we sort of started losing playgrounds. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you all very much for coming. I know that we'll be meeting in this forum again, and I think the board will discuss other forums. I also think, again, going back to your very first introduction to the community, which was a town hall, I think that will be helpful when you're ready to do that.
Sure.
So multiple communication vehicles.
Yes. So I believe that we will coordinate over the next several days here for any follow-up. Well, there are definitely follow-up items here between you, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Waring here for, you know, how we proceed forward type of thing. But there's a lot of information here that we are taking and definitely will be huddling about.
Right. And just for the record, any communication to me gets shared with the entire
Yes.
board. I mean, it just,
Yes.
you can communicate with one and then it will be shared.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So we're very inclusive in this. Thank you very much. Thank you for monitoring the time. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your comments. Thank you, audience, for your comments.
Thank you.
You want to do a 1 minute stretch? 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Thank you.
How about a 3 minute stretch? We'll say our goodbyes and move on to the rest of our agenda. We have another hour.
Still live.
We're still live.
It's just,
Dave, do you need for anything else? You don't need me for anything else? I don't. Okay.
That's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
Yes, thanks.
For coming.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's first.
Well, this is first.
This is the workshop. Yeah, but that's good. Yeah.
All right, we're ready to resume. We have another 50 minutes and a 60-minute agenda.
We could do it.
We can do it. We'll make up that time. Our next item on the agenda was some quick updates. We had 5 very quick updates. One is on the interlocal agreement, one on the website RFP process, one on athletic fields, one newspaper, and one July 4th parade standards. Then we'll move to committee volunteer assignments, and then some management administrative issues. All right, so updates, interlocal agreement.
We have a meeting with the county on Monday. I did ask Dave Tomac on Friday when he was here if there's any way they could find time this week to bump us, and he said he'd go back and check. So if I hear from him, I will get in touch with you guys and try and get it bumped as quickly as we can.
And it was you plus, was it the 3?
All
was 3?
Yeah, the 3.
Good. And if we need to bump and have only 2, is that okay? Okay. And then you heard the guidance from the board in our last discussion to explore more than simply the athletic.
I think it's still the same game plan. It's
Same
just,
game plan.
Trying to get it
okay.
at a different time.
Good. Thank you. Website RFP process. Kevin, you want Patrick? Patrick, you want to tell about the email you sent to 2 board members last week? Or whatever else?
Sure, that's fine. So we forwarded an email over with 3 of the 8 our proposals that we sent out. So only 3 responded with an actual proposal. That was forwarded over to Kevin and yourself, Mr. David. And so at this point, we're taking a look to see who would be the best out of the 3. We did have a meeting to kind of go over what the expectations are from the website, things that were either outlined in the RFP or just things that were just brainstorming at that point. And so we do have what, as far as management is concerned, a company that we would like to move forward with, but we're working with the board to see if there's a different direction that you want to go through.
I have a hunch on which one, just based on the numbers. Do the rest of the board does not have this?
They do not.
We need to get this off to them. How do you want to proceed with it?
So Kevin and I were sent, because we were the subcommittee designated, and I reviewed them. You and I have not talked about our respective reviews. Does the rest of the board want to see these, or do you want to rely on our judgment?
No, let's see it.
You want to see the proposals?
I don't need to see it. I mean,
okay.
The RFP process.
Jack does. Okay.
All right. No. I'll pay.
No, if you want to see, if you want to,
I'll photo it to everybody. If you open it,
just
say
what you want.
There you go.
okay. So one of our agenda items is if we're ready to have this as a recommendation to the board with one of these 3 for the May board meeting.
Which would be May 30th.
Which is May 30th. That's 3 weeks from Wednesday or something like that.
Can I just ask what the time frame would be to implement once you've approved a vendor?
It varies based on the vendor. One was a half year. Did I read that correctly?
I believe the one that we're interested in is about 20 weeks.
About 20 weeks is
right. There are steps. So week 1 is getting together.
Yeah, that's a good.
But I never want to go with the minimum of what they said. So I just want to make sure that we present a website that we've gone through and we understand it's working on all aspects and we're just not pushing out.
I just want to get a sense of the time frame we're talking about.
Yeah, late fall, probably late fall.
Could we try to call Brian again?
He's on this phone over here.
He is on?
Yes, he's on.
Oh, okay.
Right? You still there, Brian?
Brian?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, he's
Okay.
there. Yay.
Okay, so Kevin and I will. Is it fair?
Get together with Patrick
By the end of the week.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll set time.
Patrick, include me on that invite too, please.
Tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah,
that'd be ideal. That's on your schedule.
I will in 3.
Okay, so we'll resolve that and have a proposal to the board for the meeting later this month. Third agenda item, and I know there was a sub item here: athletic recreation fields, restrooms, concession stand. Steve, please.
So last week, April 30th, I met with Mark and Danny. One of the issues that we're working through right now is there was a small wetland on the property, so we have to purchase wetland credits. Mark's going to be working with the environmental specialist that was approved at the last CROA board meeting to complete the study. They'll determine the number of wetland credits we need to purchase, and when we talk about money, we want to frame it in the conversation of Brian's overview. So remember, the 250K is that other pot that Brian discussed at the board meeting. The wetland credits are going to come out of that 250K pot. Now, you're also going to make a motion here in just a minute after I'm done talking to approve the purchase of the, or to approve the payment for the permits, all of which are part of this process. So that's all part of that 250K, but you can't proceed without going through the permitting process. We did ask Danny to submit to ONCO a notice to proceed so they can start securing the materials and subcontractors. And then notice to proceed for construction will be pending on these permits being approved. Once approved, then we'll get the notice to proceed for them to start breaking ground and start construction on the property. Danny will be working to complete an illustrative design for us that will show what this facility is going to look like when it's done. It's going to have the logo on the athletic field, the restrooms, all the bollard lights, everything of what it will look like when it's done that we can post on the website and use as one of our marketing pieces. RFP for the building will be going out by the end of this month with the time frame to have the general contractor selection to the board by the June meeting. And then that will actually put us in alignment. The wetland process of the credits pushed us back a little bit on construction of the fields. So this will put us in alignment with the entire process so that when we open, everything will open at the same time.
Good.
I've asked Danny to get a change order from ONCO, excuse me, for clearing of the golf course property, the Lot D, and just to add Bahia grass there. That way you will have additional parking, and it'll be some open space while we try and figure out what we're going to do with that property ultimately.
Okay.
And then it can also be, we also need the transfer station. Remember the $30,000 that we talked about for a transfer station? That will be included as a change order so that you can add that for the building. JR is starting planning process for the groundbreaking ceremony in mid to late July, meaning we'll all be sweating out there with construction hats on while we get our picture taken for the groundbreaking. And then we'll begin a contest to name the complex. Last time we did it to where we asked for names from the residents and from the kids in the community, and they submitted names to us, and then we did a little fundraiser where people put in dollars to vote on the one that they wanted, and that was for the dog park. So we can talk about that idea, we can talk about other ideas, but we have a couple months to kind of work through that process. And then grand opening, yes sir.
Spring of 2019, is that correct?
Well, technically it could probably be open January, but when you're talking about winter here in Florida, you never know whether it's going to be a tropical winter, 80 degrees, or it's going to have cold snaps. And cold snaps will put the Bermuda grass into dormant season, and you probably don't want to open your fields with dormant Bermuda fields. You need to give them an opportunity for the root base to really take and be strong. So the opportunity here is to really kick it off when all the sports seasons start up in spring of 2019. They usually begin their opening day somewhere around March. So March would be a great time.
Okay, I guess my comment, I don't argue any of that. My comment for the group to consider is, as we think about how we're going to communicate the evolving timeline, I'm going back to the January or February meeting where I think people were even thinking, late this year or something. We need to really make sure that people are clear. Okay, the calendar's moving for these reasons, and this is the best calendar we now have.
All right. And if there's an opportunity for a soft opening and playability, then we'll definitely take advantage of it. The synthetic turf field doesn't need to take. It's going to be ready to play once it's done. So if we have an opportunity for a soft opening and we're allowed to do that, then we'll proceed with that. But I think that it would be a really great grand opening in the spring of 2019 to have the season start at the new athletic field complex.
And could we not also open but not have action on the grass fields?
That's what I'm talking about, soft opening first before the regular grand opening.
So
we did it with the dog park. We opened the dog park a month before we did the grand opening.
Right, okay.
So that's the update, and if you all would like to make a motion to approve those permits, and I can pop it up on the screen so that everybody that's watching can see what you're talking about here.
Can you make the Can you enlarge
Yes,
it?
yes, the eyes, I got it.
I move to approve all the payments.
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any discussion on the payments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, I'll just read them real quick so that everyone can see. It's $4,345 for Osceola County for the county permit, $650 for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection water permit, $250 for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection sewer permit, $600 Enterprise Community Development District for utility service application. And they all are from the Capital Improvement Reserve expenditures.
So can we have a brief summary of this at the board meeting?
Sure.
Maybe not as detailed as this, but just some brief summary and highlights and timelines would be of interest.
Yeah, and there won't be a lot of movement between now and then other than the RFP getting out in the street, but this is good progress, though, to move us to that next level. Once we can get through all these hurdles, they can start putting the shovels in the ground, and then things will move along pretty quickly.
Okay. Next item, update on newspaper. We had a presentation from JR at our last workshop, I think it was. Is there any update on that, or Steve?
The only update that we have is that the provider can come and meet with you all if you'd like to have him as part of one of our workshops. And I think he's going to be in town.
Thursday afternoon,
Oh, so this week, Thursday and Friday, which may be too soon. But we can look at that opportunity if we get to that point to where we want to bring them in and have more questions answered.
Wasn't one of the overriding issues or remaining issues from the board looking at financials? Wasn't that an unresolved issue? The details of the financial?
The cost and,
yeah, the
and
cost
the advertising and the cost involved?
The options.
The options
Weighing
between
options.
the newspaper and the magazine?
Yeah, newspaper versus magazine.
Was,
that,
yes, there were
wasn't
some
that an
questions
unresolved
about that.
issue?
It was, and I met with Kevin separately because he had some questions about it. I know he asked everybody if they want to, but I'll get it out to everybody. It probably is helpful. It's going to be a little bit confusing, so it's helpful that I can answer questions as you're looking at it, so you have a better understanding. Because the way the newspaper is set up is it is its own little profit center when you look at it from an expense just for the newspaper. But when you mix it into the overall communications GL line that we have right now, it does not completely offset that communication GL line. So I'll show you those numbers, and maybe Brian can help me to where they are easily digestible and they make more sense, because he did a great job with the other presentation. So
these are sent out. You sent them out April 9th to the entire board.
Oh, good, I did. Good. Okay. So everybody has it. I'll send them again, and I'll.
But it was a matter of understanding them, because they are confusing.
Yes.
Right.
And so we need the Brian interpretation.
Right.
Of them.
Well, I think they're like any numbers. If you're trying to look at them a certain way, then that's the way you can look at them. If you're trying to look at them another way, then. So I think that they're black and white numbers. The numbers don't change, but depending on what your goal is and what you're trying to accomplish, I can work with Brian to lay them out that way.
Right. Okay.
I'd be happy to sit down with you next week.
Okay. Perfect.
That'd be great.
The one question that I had asked was regarding the independence of the ownership. Steve had replied, I think, to everybody on the board, but just to put it into the public, there is no relationship between this particular publisher and CCMC, even though they do a number of CCMC communities across the country, and there is no financial involvement or I wasn't going to use that word, but there's no compensation or affiliate or anything else. Am I correct?
That is absolutely correct from a company standpoint, and then I'll unfortunately reiterate that from a management standpoint here on the ground. We want the best product that's the most efficient, effective, get you the highest return on your investment. That's our goal, is to get you a good quality product.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate what I said when you brought it up at the last meeting. CCMC actually has a contractual obligation to disclose that to us, so I feel like, they would have to meet that. So
I'm just say it again. In the butt, Brian.
Just the only thing is it's a good product that they've provided. That's why other communities want to use it. We trust them.
Okay, and the last item for updates, July 4th parade standards. I know we talked a little bit about this last time.
We really don't have an update on this. We got a legal opinion. The standards that we have in place are perfectly within our legal rights.
Okay.
The only question would be is if the CROA board decided that they wanted to change the the direction that we have for how the parade's run.
Yeah, again, since I raised this question, I appreciate the quick response. I appreciate the legal opinion. And I think based on legal opinion, we should support management and what they're doing. I will say that I have heard that one of the parties involved in the parade is considering taking legal action against us on this policy. And I think we should be aware of that. But I think since we've taken the step of going to our council, receiving legal opinion, it would be wise of us to follow that opinion and get out of the way and let you manage in accordance with the policy.
Okay. And that policy is driven by past CROA boards. So if this current CROA board isn't happy with the way we've established that parade, we've looked at best practices from Winter Park and other communities that do parades. But remember, we are an HOA, so it's a little bit different governing rules. But if this board would like to move the participants in different orders, then we can certainly have that discussion with you.
Well, I think if there's a lawsuit filed or we receive communication from opposing counsel, then we can consider what the merits are of that particular position. I just didn't want us to get caught not knowing and leaving management out to dry.
Right.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, those are our updates. Let's move to our next item, 20 minutes. Committee volunteer assignments. What we did at the board meeting was to approve the committee, if you will, goals or charges. One of those was a new committee, the dog committee. And what we deferred till now is the committee appointments so that we had full information. And I think we have 5 committees to look at. And Susan has sent out information.
Sorry, when did you send the?
She sent that last
Friday. Friday was cut off that you requested for submittals.
Okay. So let's just go through these one by one. I think the first one was Architectural Review Committee. And I think the question and clarification is how many vacancies are there and how many total members? And the total members for ARC is 7. And it looks like we have 2.
ARC is capped out at 5. That's the only one. Everyone
capped
else
out at
is
5.
7. Right.
Okay.
I believe that Mark Hayes' name is on there.
Yeah, that was
he is
withdrawn.
Asked to
that was
withdraw.
withdrawn a week ago. So in fact, we have 4 returning members and 2 with an interest. Is that correct?
It is. My question is, maybe I missed it. Did we receive the email on the committee chair recommendations?
I've got it right here. I sent it to you this morning.
Oh, you did?
And with this particular one, they said Jesse Opalka was more qualified than the other 2 applicants.
Okay.
You sent it this morning because I didn't get anything.
Yours usually bounces back to me for some reason.
This is the note.
I just forwarded it to you again if it doesn't come through. There might be something with your email.
I have 2 emails. You choose either one.
And both of, just a point of information, both of those names also appear for covenants.
Right.
As potential ads. My view is that.
What date is that?
Where are we?
Yeah, I'm lost.
Just forwarded it.
So I'm searching for this.
I have it up on the screen too.
Oh, you do? Oh, you got to make it bigger though. Sorry.
It's on that email she sent us.
Right, so what you see in that middle column.
Is that better?
Yeah. On behalf of old people everywhere, we thank you.
And my view, I don't know, my view is that a person should be on one committee. I mean, if we have a preference, unless we have gaps.
Yeah, limited.
And so for this one and for covenants, we have more people interested than we have spaces. And I would just recommend that we not appoint the same person to both committees when we have multiple interest.
I move to appoint Jesse Opalka to the opening on ARC.
Second?
Including the existing 4 that are already there, plus Jesse.
Yeah, maintaining.
I'm sorry. Let me amend the motion. I move to appoint Michael Valaket, Adele Alberto, Alec Ross, Nathaniel Rosnick, and Jesse Opalka.
Let me clean it up just a little bit more for you too. Go ahead and make the motion to approve Michael Valaket as the chair also.
and Michael Valiquette is the chair. So
We-
many
Glad
roles.
it's you. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second
Thank you, Vaughn. Any further discussion?
I never saw any resumes for anybody, so.
Here, I've got them all right here.
She had them attached.
I never received her
Is it at
email.
the
That was
bottom?
Friday afternoon. Here you go.
That was Steve just sent me something.
And
That should be
so
in the
one of the
top
comments on the
list.
applications
Hold on
is,
a second.
reviewing these, I found, A, some with no information, which was not helpful, and B, I would like to see some revision on this. So it's like, why are you interested and what are your relevant qualifications with respect to this particular committee? So, but why are you interested is a different question than qualifications. So we have a motion on the table for.
Oh, I moved on to the next one.
We didn't approve it.
1 second.
It was seconded.
Do we have any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Covenants is our next question, and I think looks like we have 3 returning, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yes.
Correct.
And we have space for 4. Is that correct?
4 additional, yes.
4 additional. And is this up to date?
Where's the 4? I got 3.
1, 2,
I move to
3.
approve.
Yeah, 4 plus 3 additional.
Oh.
Because we didn't count the
Here's
chair.
here's the problem. When you look, you see members, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members.
Yeah.
So you need another slot for a 7th member to fill out your committee.
Oh, I see.
So you have 3 that are returning.
Oh,
and
plus the
Plus
chair,
the
plus the
chair.
chair. I'm sorry, plus the
Well,
chair.
That's fine. He's
No,
one.
no, Stephen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen.
All the way at the
Oh,
top.
I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay,
I did the
3
same
ones.
thing.
Yeah, sorry. Yep, you're right.
So we have space for 3.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Okay?
I missed the chair up there too.
I move, Mr. President,
Yes, please.
I move to appoint Robert Laflamme as the chair.
He doesn't want to
He
be
doesn't
chair.
want
It's
to be
Stephen.
chair.
Stephen wants to be chair.
Stephen, okay.
And the committee discussed
Okay,
it.
I move to appoint Stephen Fraunfelter as the chair, and members Robert Laflamme, Gary Hudspeth, Michael Smith, and Walter Akana, and Dan Heskett, and Terry Ann Bajek to the Covenants Committee.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I don't have any background on Terry Bajek. I would like to see Tim Swisher on there because of extensive experience previously on the Governance Committee.
Oh. Here's the recommendations of the chair of that committee.
I don't have anything on Mr. Akana either.
Okay, so we have recommendations from the chair.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
I want to start by saying I appreciate Mr. Swisher's community involvement and his service to this community over the years. I think Covenants is probably the most important touch point that we have with the community. It's the thing that creates the most comment, the most discussion, the most irritation. I had a wonderful opportunity to do a ride-along inspection with Jack and with Mary Jane. And I was impressed with Mary Jane's discretion, her judgment, her ability to work with people. I think the Covenants Committee has to represent those same qualities and skills. The people that I've nominated in this motion, I think, all have those capabilities. I think that Mr. Swisher's 10 years in the Covenants Committee previously is wonderful, but I want new voices. I want new eyes on the picture. I want new perspectives. And I think the community would appreciate that. I hope that there are ways for Mr. Swisher to continue to contribute to this community, but I don't think this is the place for him.
Okay.
I disagree. You guys show me some background for Terry Bajek. Why I should appoint her.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Terry Bajek, I've got nothing here except an application. There's no background whatsoever. So why are you appointing her?
I'm appointing her because I want new voices on the committee. I would rather have a voice, Jack, that is open than a voice that says at the end of their term that they are hoping that this new board doesn't ruin our community. I don't think that's appropriate. And I've expressed those concerns. I think Mr. Swisher is not the person to be representing us in front of this community.
I disagree. I disagree totally. Tim has served this community very well for many, many years, both on the co-evidence committee. He's proven himself as a property manager.
I'd like to comment on that specifically.
Okay.
Tim was in fact the property manager for Town Center Condominium Association for many years.
Okay.
And there I have plenty of emails in my position as a resident and an owner within Town Center of things that should have been addressed with his professionalism and with his knowledge of the documents of Town Center that ended up being pointed at the direction of others that it was not, in fact, under. We all know that position. We know what that looks like now. And while I respect Tim and I appreciate his time, I'd like to see maybe a different area for him to work with. I don't know right now if this is the best area for him.
I have a comment,
Please,
President. When I first went to Covenants, Tim was on the board, on the Covenants, I'm sorry, not the board, on the Covenants committee. And I was new. I'd been on a board previously in another community, but not on a Covenants committee. And I was new, and I learned. I mean, new people, you need new people on these boards because eventually you're, I don't want to say old timers, but these people leave because they've had a lot of time, like Gary did, not Gary Hudspeth, Garofalo, and Herb Winfield. They spent a lot of years on there, and after a while, you just want to take a break. So you need new blood to fill in and learn, because if we keep putting the same people in, I see an issue with quality. When I was on the Covenants Committee, Tim did a great job. I mean, his decisions were sound on that committee. I thought he did a great job there. My only thought is, and the only reason that I would vote for the motion would be because of wanting to see new voices in the community get involved, like I did. I was new, but they took me under their wing and they helped me, and I learned about the community. We need more people that want to try to help to get on these committees and learn about the community, because if we keep shutting them out, I mean, we're all here, we're all recyclable. At some point, we may leave, and the new people, we may leave in 2 years, we may leave in 4, but we're going to leave, and we need new blood to mix in, and that's my only thought. It's nothing. I have no issues with Tim. He did a great job when we worked together. That's my point of view in approaching this, and all the committees, in fact.
I call the question.
Before we move there, just to make clear what the committee chair's priority order is. Did that get passed around? Okay, as long as we have that from the proposed committee chair. And I also do see, I mean, I respect Tim and have very much appreciated serving on the board. I did not serve on Covenants with him, but appreciated his insights. But I do see with Terry Ann, I do see experience there that seems relevant to this committee, in addition to just being fresh. but I see relevance on her.
I mean, personally, when I went to that committee, I had no experience with the pattern book, but I mean, I studied it, and I looked at it online, I looked at Part C, I mean, I learned it. I mean, it's learnable. I mean, and you've got some experienced people like Gary and Steve on the committee, but these people need to be brought in. We need to allow new people to have a voice.
Okay.
I think.
And we have Brian on the phone. Can he still hear?
Brian, you got anything to add? That would
Hello,
be a no.
Mexico.
He's on.
Is he on?
It's still going, yeah.
Because he's going to vote or not vote.
Brian.
Jackson, you
Brian,
call the
going once.
question? Any further discussion? So the question is to name Stephen as the chair, renew the three, Robert, Gary, and Michael, and then you named Walter, Terry Ann, and Dan. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, let's go ahead.
I am on. Can you? So, what exactly are we voting on with covenants there? Are there too many people that we've got to get rid of somebody, or is there exactly 7 in total?
There are two. Yes, there are too many who have an interest, but based on.
You could remove Jesse, though, because you just
removing
appointed him.
Jesse because he was appointed to ARC, so we have one more of interest than we have space for. That's why we're voting.
But when I looked at the email that the committee chair sent this morning, that Susan sent out, Tim was the chair, or the proposed chair's first choice, wasn't he?
Correct.
Yes.
And the chair named 5 new people, and we have space for 3. And one of whom we are removing simply because we've approved him for ARC.
I think the chair prioritized based on his recommendation 1 through 5, because there's 5.
Right,
applications.
prioritize 1 through 5.
Correct.
So we take that under advisement.
And I think also the point is these people typically, from what I understand, stay on these committees. It's almost like the U.S. Supreme Court where they stay there unless the board removes them. And so unless they walk away themselves, they're always going to be there. So we have to think of that
Right.
as well.
And a couple have. Well, you walked away.
He got promoted.
I don't know if it's a promotion.
You got
or a demotion, whatever way you want to look at it.
New details. Does that help, Brian?
Yes. So what is our recommendation specifically that we'd be voting on?
There's a motion.
The motion specifically renews the 4, Stephen, Robert, Gary, and Michael, also naming Stephen as the chair, and then Walter, Terry Ann, and Dan. Walter Akana, Terry Ann Bajek, and Dan Heskett. That is a specific motion.
Which would exclude Tim, even if he's the committee chair's first choice.
That is correct.
And I heard Don's comments. Okay. And everybody else's.
Okay. Are we ready? Ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vaughn, did you vote? Okay.
Nay.
Jack is a nay?
Nay.
Okay.
I'm a nay.
So it passes 4-2. Next committee is dog park?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes.
There are 7 places and there are 7 nominees or 7 people of interest.
I move to approve.
Can I make a recommendation
Please.
before you make your motion? This is a committee where I think you let the 7 pick their own chair instead of you appointing it. It's a new committee, but I think the 7 will vote and pick their own.
That's fine. We had a motion.
I'm sorry, was it Jackson?
That was from Jackson. We have a second?
Second. I'll second.
Second from Kevin. Any discussion? And we're okay with letting the committee?
There's not a tornado taking place out there.
Is that?
It's pressure washing.
We asked them
I thought
to
it was
move,
an airplane
and
coming
they
over
did,
the
but
loudspeaker.
Eileen has a.
You have to come up to
Okay.
the, thank you.
I can't even see this because the last time I looked, it was a small.
it's
group.
200%.
Yeah, I also, Dory and I, the last time I saw it, are both also asking to be on the special events committee. And I know the idea is really to have somebody only be on one committee. However, I think because of the nature of this committee, it would be good for at least a short period of time, maybe a year, to have a little overlap.
Yeah, and I think
A little continuity in it.
Right, thank you. And I think the intent there was not to exclude someone, but if there was, if we had 10 people,
Well, you could always have us like sort of as extra.
you could be ex officio, or if someone else.
Well, it's important. The objectives are going to be very important with this committee because they're going to develop the plan for implementation of the rules and enforcement of the rules. So some experience would probably be beneficial here.
I think that's fine. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our next committee is Recreation. We have space for 7, and we have 5 with interest. And we have, looks like 4 of the 5 are returning, and Alan Rowan is the only new. Am I reading that correctly?
That is correct.
And we do not have a chair identified?
No, but I have reached out to Tim Zomensky, and he did verbally ask to be part of it, but he didn't fill out his application in return. Now, he does have children that travel across the United States sports, so I know he's very busy. So maybe that's the reason why he didn't get it back to me, but he did express interest in it. And if you appointed him today and he decided he didn't want to, you could just find another replacement.
I'd like to make that appointment. I mean, I've talked to Tim. He's passionate about these issues. He's really interested in helping out. He's also the administrator of the Celebration non-official back porch Facebook page. We could always text him there and ask him. But I think he would be a good addition to the committee. So I would move to approve with the addition of Tim Zelmansky as a member.
And let them pick their own chair.
Let them pick their own chair.
Pick their own chair.
We have a second to the motion.
Was that a second, Jack?
Vaughn is second. Vaughn is going to second.
Discussion.
Okay, discussion?
I disagree. If he hasn't applied, he shouldn't be up there. I also disagree because his position on the back porch. Back porch has been nothing but problems for us.
I will say that I would like to see an application from.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
I said that I disagree with the choice of putting somebody in there who has not put an application in. And I disagree also because the person runs a back porch, and for that reason alone, I'm opposed to him.
The back porch, while I'm not the biggest fan, I think it's irrelevant, but I do think that an application needs to come in just because in the future, I would hate for the perception to be that, oh, well, my friend didn't, put his application in, but I want to get him on here.
You could approve him at the next meeting with an application if you wanted to.
I don't know.
Well, let me ask this. If an application were to be made after this date, since there are still openings, could someone be added to the committee?
You can always add. Well, as long as there's an opening, you can add it to the next meeting.
I think that might be the best.
Then I would, with the approval of the second, I would amend my motion to.
I'll withdraw my second. Can I do that?
Yeah. To just approve as submitted with the committee to pick their own chair.
Approve the 5, committee picks its own chair.
I'll second that.
Reach out to Tim.
I will today.
And so that leaves 2 vacancies.
2 open positions.
2 openings. Yeah. And those can be approved at any board workshop or board meeting, as long as we have that noticed. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Last one is special events. We have 5 returning. We have Debbie Jackson as a 6th.
That looks like a solid group right there. Good solid group.
Well,
I move to approve all 6.
Jack has a motion to approve.
Second.
Second from
Jackson.
Jackson. Any discussion? Please.
Allow them to pick their own chair.
Allow them to pick their own chairs? Okay, Jake? Good. All right.
Wait, Dory Moore, you're showing us the chair.
She's been the chair consistently, but I imagine that would probably be what they want to do. But for these types of committees, I mean, the ARC and the Covenants Committee are your two committees that you're required to have by the governing documents. So these committees, I think, makes more sense to let them talk about it and determine who's going to be the leader.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that closes that item. Our last 10 minutes. Management and administrative items. Review of board meeting efficiencies. Very, very quickly, we've had one board meeting as a board, as this board. How do we make it more efficient? It was 3 hours. We were actually meeting for a 2-month period, so we had action items for 2 months' worth. That will automatically decrease, I hope. But I was just wondering about some other efficiencies. I circulated something to the board, got no comments. I don't know if that's just like, oh my gosh, or no comments from management. But about changing the tab, I don't know what that means, but would some summary at the beginning be helpful or not? And I'm not wedded to that. I just
Rachel's actually put something together, and if you have 2 minutes, I think she can go over it with you real quick.
I heard comments afterwards. Yes, that was a good.
Yeah, she's coming to a microphone.
So yes, that was a good meeting, but
I love it.
But the question is, how do we make it more efficient? I heard one comment, wouldn't it be nice if we had the board meeting 90 minutes?
Well, I tried for an hour, but
I don't think
David, you
we're
heard
there.
one comment, what?
We tried for an hour, but
How long did you say?
CROA board meeting. Oh my, so do you want to talk us through this or not?
Yeah, Steve's pulling up the digital link. Basically, what you've got here is a lot of what you recommended, okay? If you want to see some of the backup information from the board, you just click the links.
So this is, when this is online.
It's 50, 60 pages, and it's comprised of your agenda, your management report, your action items, and the treasurer's report.
So you took the last board, you just.
This is your last board meeting. Your comments from it. When you get to the action items, you're welcome to click on the link to go to the actual details, whether it's an whether it's an RFP, whatever. How many people submitted a bid on something, all the links will be here. Steve's now going through the agenda, which will be linked to everything in the report. Remember, you can always click on the agenda to go back to your original spot.
So if you notice up here in the corner, you can drop your bookmarks and then go back to the agenda.
Right. So even when you move to the management report, Steve, go down to key performance indicators or anything in there. As you move through the management report, when you go down to, let's just say we get to the financial section, you'll see in there where you can pull up the individual financials, also a copy of Brian's statement that he does each month.
I'm not.
The link, the full report is not in there, but it just shows you
Okay.
as you move through. When you get to items, there's like 3 sections of the report. This is your printed copy, which is about 50 or 60 pages. The second part is your reference section, and I have an index of this if you want to see. It contains everything that is not confidential.
Right.
Which can be
Those last
accessed.
few tabs are.
Which can be accessed on the front porch. The third part is a confidential reference section, which contains community standards items. It contains accounts receivable, that type of thing. So you would move through the report like that.
So, first question, go ahead, Paul.
I just keep going back to what Steve said at one point. We have the workshops and we have the CROA actual board meetings, and the workshops, I think, is where you get the work done. I mean, that's where everything gets ironed out, discussed, and you know, you get the citizen comment, resident comments. And they also have that period of time at the CROA board meeting, but I still think the CROA board meetings where residents typically show up in the audience need to be shorter. You get people leaving too soon. And if we shorten that up, that's where we should be voting on things that we discuss at the workshop and not use the board meeting as another workshop. And I think that's what's dragging us down at that end. Workshops, they tend to get longer. I mean, that's where that's where we iron all this stuff out.
I think that comes from controlling the agenda in a way that makes it clear that something's not coming on the board agenda unless it's workshopped or it's been discussed or we think it's a pro forma item. Since we're doing so many of these workshops and other meetings, I mean, I agree. I'd like to see us get shorter. I also think there's a learning curve. There are 4 of us that have never been through this process before. I felt very pleased that I survived it. So, you know, I expect it'll get better. I love this. Thank you very much.
So is this,
Would you like to try it?
I was going to say, is this too hard, too much extra effort to do?
And what I'm happy to do, that Thursday night, you normally get your board book. If by Friday or Monday, I think I need something printed, just send me an email. I'll make sure it gets printed and sent to you right away. I can foresee that Brian might need the detailed financials.
Right.
Okay? Whereas some of you may need to see the details of an RFP that you want printed that would probably be cost prohibitive for you to print at home. I can do it a lot quicker and more efficiently.
Ideally, this gets posted for the community and to us at the same time.
Minus the confidential.
Minus the confidential, and then it's basically set unless there's an emergency.
There's a paper copy, you'll get the 50 pages.
Basically set. Okay. And then we'll try some of this short version. I don't really care what it looks like, but something that summarizes on the front of a tab, because the paper's already there, or the page is already there. Does that sound okay? So
have the revision in the action items that you talked about where we'll have the quick summary, was it budgeted, is it not budgeted, that type of stuff, so we can
that is, yes.
say, okay, it's in line with what was expected.
Yeah, you can't see what I'm holding up, Brian. Okay. So just the other clarification in terms of owner comments, just to clarify, we have that at the beginning. During the workshops, we're doing that periodically. But we have that at the beginning, and what we've had historically is really limiting that to 3 minutes. Is that still where we are?
For the board meeting?
For the board meeting.
I think we should make the attempt, but of course, if it's something that is pressing, then we listen. I think that's
we can be flexible. I think.
Yeah.
But ideally target 3 minutes.
I think with the explanation before the homeowner comment period that this is a business meeting and we're trying to move as efficiently effective through this meeting. Reminder that there's town hall opportunities and workshop opportunities, and then just ask people to stay within their 3 minutes.
And I would add to that, there was something that happened at the last board meeting where a resident gave their time up to a vendor. That was, in my view, totally unacceptable.
I agree.
And I didn't want in the first 5 minutes of the first board meeting to throw a temper tantrum, but that's just not acceptable to me at all.
And I take responsibility. I should have called that out, but it's like that was my first few minutes.
Am I correct in my understanding that would not be an appropriate use?
That's an unfair advantage for
I think
a
that was
vendor
inappropriate.
to have that.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, to have that venue in front of you.
So perhaps we want to just announce that this time is only for residents, and it's.
That's correct.
If there's something that a vendor wants to say, that could be scheduled differently.
And one of the things that this board has done in the past is to not totally respond to that, but to make sure is to refer it to management if it's appropriate to management, or to a committee, to one of our goal areas, or to covenants or ARC.
It certainly is a slippery slope. I think you'd have every vendor out there wanting to come
Absolutely.
and have their 5 minutes in front of them.
Absolutely. And I would ask other board members, please, if you're seeing something that is inappropriate, please interrupt, call the question. Just jump in. I welcome that, and I think our residents appreciate that. Just real quick on the May 21st workshop agenda. Is this our agenda? This is a proposal. The Artisan Park Evergreen Activities and Reserve Funds was a proposed item from 2 weeks ago. That is for the May 21st workshop agenda. And then Replacement Reserve Fund, and then Comcast. Is that where we are?
You've already seen here.
But that would be the agenda for discussion 2 weeks from today. No.
I think that, and Rand can correct me if I misstate anything here, but I believe that through our meeting, Brian, myself, and Rand, we've come to a comparable solution that makes sense for all parties, and that's what we'll be presenting to you on the 21st.
Okay. So
when Brian gets back next week, we'll touch base again just to make sure that everyone's comfortable, and then I'm sure he'll make a recommendation, and we'll go from there.
Let me just clarify one thing.
Yeah.
I asked Rand and Jim to be here today and to have an ongoing representation as the Artisan Park Committee to CROA. I would want to extend that same invitation to every service area, that they consider designating someone to attend CROA workshops whenever there's something on the agenda or when they feel it's important, so that we have a point of contact. And I just want to say that I appreciate you guys being here for that opportunity, and if there are questions or comments.
If I can speak, since I met with Steve and Rand and him, I actually think this process worked a lot smoother this way. Just get the issue raised, assign a CROA board member, we have a meeting or two, we traded emails, but it saves everybody on the board a bunch of time. It becomes much more efficient. I think we should use this model, and I agree with what you're saying, Jackson. It just works better.
Management agrees also. I think it makes more sense.
Yes.
So other topics for...
And just so you know, we do send out an email if there's an item that relates to a service area like the Savannah Square remodel. Susanna is sending out an email to Savannah Square residents to let them know that it's going to be on an agenda, and they can actually go and see what you as a board see on Thursday when we post it.
So on the May 21st meeting, we've got Comcast as an agenda item. We received an email from Rick Nelson at Mirasol. Would he be informed of that meeting or that agenda item?
I'll ask him to attend, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, is that what you're talking
Typically not, but we certainly
Since
can.
that was the impetus for the agenda item.
Right, but they're not a service area, but I'll reach out to him separately.
And then replacement reserves fund was also an item?
Yes.
Right? Yes. Someone had placed that there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just a reminder, I am not here for that meeting.
Is Debbie back?
Debbie is back.
Okay.
She texted in sick, so I don't know when they arrived back.
Okay.
So it could be, coming from New Zealand.
Can we ask for clarification real quickly on what the replacement reserve conversation was?
That is the issue I had raised, where I said, because right now we're showing in the financials where those funds are actually protected, and through the work that you had done with Susan and me, we were sitting there and you almost had to make it date specific, and it was going to be a ton of work, and we said we really think replacement reserves, we ought to take the actions to figure out how to protect them, and Tom Slayton had done some work at Susan's request. I think we need to polish it, but that's what the item was.
I understand. Okay.
Is there anything else you want to try to cover?
Do you want to discuss the closure of that task force, or you want to save that for later?
What would you like to do? What was your...
It's just a quick report that the community events...
Is this from Steve? Is this from you, from last
From Friday? We had our final meeting on Friday.
We had our final meeting, Community Events Task Force, which we have officially...
Should we take this under advisement and read this?
Yeah, you can read this. This is just a proposal that there is out there. We were thinking that instead of doing it as a task force, that we would change it to a more of a workshop format, because we don't really have a task force when you don't have the main player, two of the main players there at the ever showing up at the meetings, which is Lexan and CDD. So without that, we really are in a better situation if we set it up as a workshop on occasion as needed.
On occasion, as needed. So would submitting this for our board meeting to close it out for May?
Close, but that's a dirty version that you have there, and I took a lot of notes Friday. Just didn't have an opportunity to add those notes, so I need to clean it up a little bit, and we'll make it look a little bit prettier, and then we'll present it to you for approval at the May 30th.
But can you send it to the board before you put it in the board book?
Yep.
Yeah. As soon as you've got it clean.
After JR and I touch it up, then I'll send it out to you all, and you can add any comments.
I was going to say, that's a lot of work since Friday. But this predates Friday. Good. So we'll have this on the agenda for
May 30th.
End of May, 3 weeks from Wednesday. And then I guess one of the last thing is just as you think about at the next workshop, what the future workshop items, and we have a couple listed in our detailed notes, talking about downtown. I know we'll have some discussion on that in our executive session to follow. Strategic planning goals that was deferred from last time, and then review of our whole processes. I guess also when I want to look at the board book, I skipped over the management report part, and so that's something I'd like to workshop with us is what are the elements of the management report that are helpful to us as a board?
You probably have time on the 21st to do that, but I know you won't be here.
I won't be here, but you won't. What's helpful to you? I know that for me, but if you have time on the 21st, you can start to look at that.
Well, I thought we had talked in a previous meeting that we would wait until June, and that way
We
you've
can wait
gone
till June.
through
We can wait.
two,
Yeah, we don't want
and you'll
to.
see.
We don't need that for this board book. Yeah, that's why I let that go. Yes. Anything else for our workshop for today? Anything from our studio audience? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to it? No, we already have a motion. I'll second.
Second, any comments? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we're closed on the meeting. Take 5 while Tom gets settled. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Do I need to sign something?
I don't know why.
I get stuff from Steve.